I am Joel McLeod.
And I'm Roland Tanner.
And welcome to the 905er. If you're a longtime listener of this podcast, you'll no doubt be aware that we are big fans of urban design, or more specifically, how to design our cities better within the 905 region. As we come to the realization that we cannot just keep building sprawl across the region and province, new ways of building our cities will have to be put on the table. A big idea that we return to on this podcast is the concept of the 15-minute city. The design idea that in an urban environment, all the vital amenities of life ought to be available within a 15-minute walk of where one lives. Groceries, doctor's offices, shops, restaurants, and clinics would be a convenient short step outside your door. An urban utopia where one wouldn't necessarily need to drive to all the places to go about the business of living. Is this practical? Perhaps, but it has always come across as a more philosophical goal when it comes to planning rather than a concrete urban design policy. Which is why in the last week or so, Roland and I have been dumbfounded by the appearance of opposition to the 15-minute city from the Freedom Convoy crowd and the far right. Rallies and op-eds have appeared across the country decrying the idea of the 15-minute city as a plot by the World Economic Forum to lock us into predetermined districts forbidden to travel beyond arbitrary walls at the risk of massive fines or worse, imprisonment by nefarious government forces. I am sorry, folks. I wish I was making this up, but I am not. This is where we are, apparently. The urban planning idea of a living, walkable city has been co-opted by the far right in just about the dumbest way possible. Now, rather than wait for the 15-minute city to become yet another rallying cry for the anger farmers and the bad faith arguers, we thought we'd work to set the record straight. To take back this good idea and make sure that it is not a taboo subject to be debated or discussed in our government and city council chambers. To that end, we have invited back to the podcast Glenn Bowerman. Glenn is a co-host of Spacing Radio, a podcast produced by Spacing Magazine, a publication that focuses on urban design and the cities in which we live. He joins us today to talk about how we got here and what we need to do to make sure that the 15-minute city doesn't become a bad word.
Well, welcome back, Glenn Bowerman, from the host of Spacing Radio. Welcome back to the podcast for a second time.
Happy to be back. My pleasure.
So this story started getting kind of attention a week or so ago. Apparently, the 15-minute city idea, which I think we'll probably all of us would agree would have been chalked up as one of the more innocuous and uncontroversial kind of aspirations that exists in sort of urban and planning circles, has suddenly become, apparently we were all wrong, and it's a massive conspiracy to keep the population inside fenced pens or something. What's your understanding about this whole story? Just to kick us off.
I mean, yeah, I was surprised when I saw that there was just general scuttlebutt about it. I assumed it was going to come from the typical, like, oh, this is just one more attack and the war against the car. I didn't realize that it went all the way to bananas country. That apparently, all the classic rogues gallery of Jordan Peterson and the goof from, Dragon's Den, or and of course Chris Sky, which I thought he was in jail, but I guess he's out again. So he must have a good lawyer or something.
Well, Ken Wolf can't keep Chris Sky in, apparently, so I don't know what he's worried about with this 15-minute city.
Yeah.
I was like, we were just talking before we hit record, but I'm flabbergasted that this has become a conspiracy talking point. I mean, for on this podcast, and I know it's well in yours, the idea of a 15-minute city has been a common refrain that we keep coming back to. I won't say that we're advocates for it, but it's something that we're definitely intrigued by the notion of it and the possibilities that it entails. And just kind of put it on the record for our listeners. Remind everyone again, somebody who might be new listening to this, what is the philosophy behind the 15-minute city?
Okay. Yeah. Like I will personally go on the record as this is something that I have and do advocate for. The actual term itself was coined in 2016 by a professor, Carlos Moreno, sort of urbanist thinker. But it really just is, it's part of a long legacy of trying to undo some of the damage we did with the urban planning straight after World War II. This very car-centric, very sprawling, sort of, in some ways, very solipsistic kind of urban planning, where everyone lives apart. They have their little patch of paradise. They get in a car and drive for 2 hours, and to some downtown business center, and then at the end of a workday, they drive back and rinse and repeat. We found out pretty quickly that for a number of reasons, that's not the most ideal way to live. It seems to be that only the most extreme kind of anti-urbanist thinkers would even push back against that, because I don't know anyone who can truthfully tell me that they enjoy their two hours of gridlock on the way to the office or whatever they're doing. I'm used to this argument against the idea of a 15-minute city, just in terms of, well, you're going to add bike lanes. We don't want bike lanes. You're going to put a sidewalk in our neighborhood that doesn't typically have a sidewalk. And, that could bring all kinds of strangers walking through our neighborhoods, that sort of thing. But really all it is the idea that you shouldn't have to get in your car to drive to the closest grocery store or bodega or whatever to buy a pack of diapers or a carton of milk.
I think the one thing that is we should underscore is that it's not a set in stone carved in the wall kind of policy of everything must be 15 minutes away. The idea is it's an ideal to strive towards, and the like those essential amenities of life, so like a doctor's office, like as you said, the groceries, bodega, shops, and those essentials for life that we need to live. We're not sitting. You're right. We're not sitting there in 2-hour traffic trying to go to the other side of our city to go to our allotted appointments. We could still, if we have that favorite shop, right? That shop that we love, that chocolate shop that it makes the best treats for us. There's another thing be stopping us from getting in our car, driving across town, shopping and doing the like. But again, it's that idea of well, no, I need to go buy my groceries. I could walk to the store, buy my week's groceries, and walk back.
Yeah,
and
if it will, and the thing is, this is all about options, right? As good urban planning always is. No one's saying you can't drive across city to your favorite chocolate boutique or whatever, but you should have the option of not having to, get in a car just to pick up a last minute item or to see a doctor, or it also raises issues of in sort of suburban neighborhoods. People are tending to age out of the neighborhoods that they've lived in for so long, because that kind of lifestyle of just getting in a car and driving, for 30 minutes to an hour to do basic things like see your doctor, it's just not sustainable.
And what happens when you lose your license because your vision is impaired and the government takes away your license?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Then you, unless you have sort of a network of support, that neighborhood that you spent your life in, all of a sudden, cannot sustain you. And that's been well documented by people like Cheryl Case in Toronto and others all over the world. It's the current model of having almost no options by design doesn't work for anyone. Apparently this has been taken and skewed into something that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's that old quote about a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on, or whatever. There was one of the guys. What was his name? Laurie, whatever.
Goldstein from the Star, or Sun, sorry, the Toronto Sun. Yeah,
from the Sun. Sorry, yeah. yeah, okay, he's a right-wing goofball, but I wouldn't have put in the Jordan Peterson complete nutbar camp.
Mhm.
Somehow picked up on this and then made a comment, I think, on Twitter, and it was like, this ludicrous idea of a 15-minute city, it's just going to be laughable to anybody living in, Markham or
I think he said south of
in the 905, actually.
Yeah, he said south of Bloor, which is.
Oh, right.
I thought that would be like, if you're living south of Bloor in Toronto,
it's exactly
my recollection would be like, you'd be like, I'd love a 15-minute city.
Yeah, but also,
and that's where you're most likely to already have it, in that you're living downtown where there's stores on street corners. I don't get it. And the fact that this is an aspiration of good design, not about making anybody change their behavior by force, this seems to have completely passed these people by. But I guess they want it to pass by. I mean, this all came to the fore because, of all places, Oxford in England, of the university fame, which I haven't been there for a very long time, but I will say it is a real traffic sort of black spot, or was 20 years ago, has sort of branded some changes that they're introducing as 15-minute city. And I don't know, have you looked at what the actual proposals were at all, Glenn?
Yeah, so this seems to be one of the main things. There were two things that I picked out, if I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, that really concerned people. And the one is, as you say, these are traffic calming measures. Having different areas of the city where cars would either not be permitted, or they would have to pay a sort of congestion charge if they absolutely had to take a certain road at a certain time of day. This is not new. Cities do it all over the place. Places in England have been doing it to some success for years, and it's not some dystopian thing. It's just they were trying to solve the problem of absolutely snarled gridlock. That's not good for anyone, and just not sacrificing everyone to the great god of the car, when there may be better solutions. But
yeah, I mean, I actually used to live in Cambridge for a couple of years, not at the university. I had to point that out because some people will say I was at Cambridge when they were no such thing, and I was not at Cambridge. I just lived there. But yeah, they had all kinds of traffic calming things back then, and that's 30 years ago. Which imagine the barriers all around the city centre that just meant you couldn't drive through there either at certain times of day or at all in some streets, because it's a medieval city and it wasn't designed for cars. And it's a horrible thing to have your tiny narrow little streets chock full of trucks.
Yeah,
so it's absolutely nothing new. And I mean, I actually read two articles yesterday about the Oxford proposals. And the first one, on the basis of the first one, I was like, oh, well, actually, there is something to object to here. Because that one, which was not a conspiracy, was actually trying to sort of say this is not what people think it is, still kind of gave the impression that people would have to pay to drive to different parts of the city. And that's not actually the case. It's not even remotely the case.
Yeah.
It's at certain times of day, you will not be able to go through certain routes, which is, like you say, something we're all already familiar with. And it's a lot more familiar in Europe, probably because they're just further down the road of they had to deal with the problems of cities not designed for cars a lot earlier, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas we did design for cars, and it's only now that the mass has reached a level of complete madness that we're sort of thinking, well, maybe we should have done it a different way. So yeah, I mean, it's to say it's sort of ludicrous is it doesn't even begin to describe the whole thing, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing that I think the conspiracy theorists sort of latched onto, well, I know they did because I saw a video of Chris Sky shouting about this to some beleaguered Edmonton urban planner.
I think I saw this too. Yeah.
Yeah. God bless him. I don't know how that's in his job description, but he seemed to be handling himself. But they made a particular hay of the Edmonton Mayor Amarjeet Sohi, calling their take on the 15-minute city, talking about the different designated districts, and I think because of what's the Katniss, the young
the Hunger
readers
Games
novels, the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
The word district is in the public consciousness right now as something very dystopian and nasty. But
my understanding is that the city of Edmonton's plan for district, and I might be wrong here, but the idea of the district was purely from a planner point of view, just in terms of an organizational standpoint. It wasn't like
it is
like the MRG. The mayor of Edmonton is not talking about like erecting these walled barriers or like the police of Edmonton are not going to be like patrolling down the border street saying, "Excuse me, Glenn, you're not allowed to cross the street. You have to stay in your district." Yeah. It's entirely from a planning point of view, just so we can plan out in terms of zoning priorities, so that when a supermarket wants to be built, where can we prioritize where to put it so that again, people are able to access it more efficiently.
Yeah, they could have used any other synonym. It's just
I think it was just a matter of bad timing on their part. I mean, I'd probably use district as well, because that's simple, because Paris is divided into districts.
Yeah,
right. So I don't know, just
bad timing. It's something that the right has been very good at over the last 20, 30, 40 years, of taking language of the left and then deliberately misinterpreting it and putting that new meaning onto it. And I mean, the sort of earliest example and the most obvious one is probably political correctness, which I always felt in origin, political correctness, insofar as it wasn't, I think it was kind of an ironic phrase from the start. Like, it wasn't even, there was no serious political correctness movement until people started reacting against it. But it just meant, let's be nice to people and let's not use language that maybe upsets how people feel. It's like, let's be polite. This is kind of how it's like, this isn't about controlling language. It's about being nice to people. And yet their definition is the one that we all have now. And that even middle of the road people will say, it's political correctness gone mad.
Right. Yeah.
And they've done it again and again and again. I mean, it's like the fake news phrase was the other one that came from the left about, this is fake news. And within weeks, Donald Trump was saying it as an attack on the left-wing press, or legitimate news, mainstream press. Yeah. I don't know. Is there a way to sort of combat that kind of process? Is there a way to sort of combat the madness?
I don't know, because it's not done in good faith. Like, you had that very good quote about, that truth isn't as fast as a lie. Your way was better, but
it's not my quote. I can't remember who said it first, but it wasn't me.
But I have a hard time believing that most of these people actually believe half of the things that they say. And, Jordan Peterson, he added fuel to this particular fire, saying that the plan is ultimately some kind of dystopian way of keeping us in pens and measuring our carbon footprint or something. And then he said at the end of his tweet, and this plan is well documented. Well, I know he used to be a professor. I don't think they allow him anywhere near students anymore, for a good reason. But if I submitted a term paper that just said, this is what I think, and just believe me that the plan is well documented, and then I don't show any scrap of evidence, any whiff of it, and just sit back and expect an A.
Well, that's the thing is, like you brought up Dr. Pete. I don't even like calling him a doctor. Doctor with a lot of quotation marks,
right? Yeah.
For our podcast listeners here. But this is not his field of expertise. He doesn't have a PhD in planning or architecture or urban studies, anything that would say, okay, you know what, I can't, maybe I do want to listen to what he says. Maybe he's looked at this from a different angle that we haven't studied yet. Okay, let's give him credence. It's crack. I mean, I think he's a piss poor psychologist to begin with. But for him to weigh in on a study of architecture, urban planning, urban studies, urban design, I think is incredibly. I mean, this is exactly what the Ontario College of Psychiatry or Psychologists, but we're taking him to task for. It's like you're using your PhD credentials in one very narrow specific area of academia to espouse expertise, knowledge in an area that you have nothing, you've done no studies, no peer review work on at all. And this is exactly it. He has no expertise on an urban design motif. I did say that I do not. I'm like, for all the Jordan Peterson fanboys who might be listening here saying, well, Joel, you don't have expertise. I know I don't, but I do talk to the people that do.
Yeah.
Right. We're tending to have credentials that we don't have,
I go and talk to the people and say, well, what's this thing about a 15-minute city? I talk to people who know what they're talking about. Say, explain it to me like I'm an idiot, because I kind of am. But it's incredibly irresponsible for him to kind of field this debate, mostly because I think of this 15-minute city idea is ultimately a good one. Like we in the 905, we're at a cross. We've said this before, Roland and I, on this podcast a million times. We're at a crossroads in the development of our region, all the various cities and municipalities, and we thought we hit the edge of the green belt, but apparently we haven't. But the idea is like we've hit our boundaries, and we need to start rethinking, how do these cities look and how do we operate in that? And especially coming out of COVID, a lot of people say, well, I don't like the idea of getting on the QEW or the 401 and driving in and out of Toronto every day. I just don't. And I'm not saying we have the solution, but I think that conversation needs to be had in, as you said, Glenn, in good faith. And this argument against the 15-minute city idea is not in good faith. I think, you can have debates on the details, like, can we put this here, put that there, how much is it going to cost, etc.
Yeah.
There's a point we could make that occurred to me yesterday, which is, and it's something I've noticed a few times in recent history. I mean, in Hamilton, they used, there's been phrases that have been used by council, I would say in considerable bad faith in a lot of ways, in recent years, are climate emergency and, climate emergency is the main one, but also zero.
Vision Zero.
Oh,
Vision Zero.
Yeah.
Vision Zero. Sorry, it went out of my head for a minute. Those two phrases have been stuck on to city initiatives, and in both cases, I'd say they are nothing to do with those actual concepts. That I don't believe any city in Ontario has a genuine Vision Zero plan.
No,
they may call it Vision Zero. It's not Vision Zero. It's not about eliminating road deaths. Same with the climate emergency. I mean, I think every city in the province, if not the country, had a climate emergency moment where they said, yes, it's a climate emergency. Okay, let's go back to life as normal. And that was the end of that. But they can stick it on all their leaflets and their documents and the rest of it. And to an extent, I suspect this is what Oxford was doing. That this is about traffic calming. And traffic calming or traffic management is always unpopular with a sector of society who suddenly can't go down a street that they used to be able to go down. And it's like, why do we have to have this? And so they stuck a label on it that makes it sound like it's, maybe a bit more trendy and modern, and it's not just going to inconvenience you. And what they've done, in fact, is give a gift to the assholes. Once again, rather than asking a question, I've just gone off on a rant. What do you think about that, Glenn?
Well, I was going to say, like, if Jordan Peterson can, pretend for a second that he cares about urban planning, and again, like you said, Joel, I am not an urban planner, but like you, I talk to people much smarter than me, and this is not a new idea. But if he's going to dip his toe into my field, then allow me to sort of put on my best conspiracy theorist, hats, and just say, what if I told you that, about 60, 70 years ago, there were a bunch of people making money hand over fist because of a war. And they realized that war was coming to an end, and they wanted to keep those record profits going. So they had a very particular product to sell, and they got in the ear of public planners at the time and said, what if we rebuild the cities so that everyone in the cities, to have a successful life and some level of freedom and mobility, have to buy our product? That's a pretty wild theory, but I think if anyone wants to bother to pick up a history book, that actually happened. And now we're just trying to claw back from it. So if you want to talk about, sinister powers with their fingers in every pie, with influence down to the very marrow of the bones of the way our cities are built, that ultimately take away our freedom. Well, that happened. So,
but I guess what I'm worried about on this one is I see that the same group of people, the Jordan Petersons, the Chris Guys, it's all the same group of people, and I'm worried is that they're more and more running the policy discussions. They're the ones running the show because they're putting the fear in good, moderate, well-thinking, deep-thinking politicians, and they are out there, ones who actually sit down and they really think like, okay, what laws do we have to change? What laws do we have to create to make a better future? My worry is that these people get the pressure going, that those good politicians, those good city councilors, regional councilors, provincial MPPs, either don't show up anymore or they stay silent on the subject. Because especially at the city council level, I'm not saying in Toronto so much. It's a different political field for sure, but out here in the 905, a lot of councils are only 6 or 7 people, maybe 15, sitting around a table, and you typically don't get a lot of time in the spotlight. And the last thing you want is for the freedom convoy yahoos to be hanging outside council meetings, shouting down an honest, in good faith debate on planning. My worry is, already planning debates at city councils here in the 905 are already tumultuous and contestable and just, not generally nice things. The last thing we need to do is add this into that debate where we throw out any hope of a good, honest debate and a good, honest idea. Because I come down to the 15 minutes today idea, and I don't think it'll happen concretely, but it's the idea. You're forced to start thinking outside the box with it. It just starts giving you, your brain starts thinking of different solutions to the way that our cities are built and operate. And I kind of want to encourage that at our policy planning level. And I guess that's what I'm worried about, is that this conspiracy idea is going to infiltrate our municipalities and just kind of nip any idea for innovation, outside the box thinking, or real creativity to solve the very real problems that we have of gridlock, housing supply, and urban living in Ontario.
I mean, it's a fear I share. I sometimes have to give my head a shake and wonder how, certain, as we've been saying, innocuous ideas somehow become a wedge issue that is claimed by one side or the other. You can absolutely be, a penny pinching, fiscal conservative who rides their bike to work. It doesn't have to be an oxymoron, but somehow it's become this, aspect of our political culture where almost arbitrarily some things are on one side of the spectrum and some things are on the other side. And I guess if the absolute loudest, most obnoxious, most deranged version of a conservative has manages to make this sort of a part of their political identity, that is upsetting. And it's happened before with bike lanes and all kinds of things that really aren't a left-wing or right-wing issue.
It's a shame. I mean, it all comes back to the car issue, I guess, ultimately, that this is basically about scaring people that they're going to take away their right to drive around where they want, when they want.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might well say that would actually be a pretty good thing, but actually that's not what's anybody's actually suggesting.
No, yeah.
How do we combat this basic, it's ironic that a metal box that for many of us basically imprisons our kind of existence, and which we depend on to get around, and which we have to sit on for far too many hours in our day, is simultaneously associated with the concept of kind of freedom and personal liberty and what sort of, it's kind of a big question half an hour into an interview, but why is that, and how do we get that out of our heads? How do we, can we sort of get the message out there that we want freedom, want the ability to have freedom from cars, not the freedom to be oppressed by the damn things?
Well, like Jordan Peterson, I'm not a particularly good psychologist, but the things that come to my mind are I accept the criticism that sort of left-wing urbanists what were written off during the Ford eras as the downtown latte sipping elites. I agree that they had two things working against them, and one was that there was a kind of smugness, there was a kind of narrow vision at first, very downtown centric vision, that kind of thing. And also that they tend to be overly wonky. And that's something on my show that I worry about myself, that, what is the barrier to be able to engage in a conversation about these things? I try to keep it, all in layman's terms, but it does get away from you when you get really into the weeds of these things. So, I would say only engage in the people who are engaging in good faith, and that does not include the Petersons, the Chris Skies, the Freedom Convoy people. You'll get nowhere with them, but don't be smug about the concerns that people may have, everyday people, which I've certainly been guilty of that. I like to make jokes about how I'm going to fight a war against the car myself. I don't mean it. I understand certain people have to live life a certain kind of way. But yeah, only engage with people who are actually engageable with, and don't be smug, and try to present the alternatives in the simplest terms, the most understandable terms.
I really like that as maybe a good way to end the podcast, as we're sort of tipping over the halfway mark. But I really like what you said there, because there is that tone that you see amongst people who I know have very good intentions and who support good initiatives of kind of, if you don't agree with me, then you're, I mean, again, it's the polarization of everything that we're dealing with right now, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you drive a car and you don't like bikes, you're an asshole. Now, I don't think that's really what they mean, but it certainly can come across that way. Mm. And like you say, a lot of people if you do live in a suburb in the 905, the thing is, you don't feel like you have a choice to live differently, and which is partly what the 15-minute city is about. It's like about giving people that choice, so exactly. That they don't, we're not taking things away, we're trying to give things to you.
Maybe that's how we should frame the debate going forward. It's not about taking away your right to drive a car, it's about giving you an option not to. Yep. And I think that's as simple as we have to put it going forward, because the naysayers, these conspiracy nuts, when they're thinking, all comes to the government wants to take this away from you. They want to take away your freedom. They want to take away your right to travel. And maybe that's the truth is, we're just like, no, we're not about taking away. We're giving you more. We're giving you more options. So you say, well, we're giving you the option to not have to worry about finding a parking space in a supermarket parking lot. We're giving you the option of quieter streets to walk down. We're giving you the option of just a better place to grow up, raise a family, all those things. Mm-hmm. And those days where you're like, yeah, I'll be honest, I like driving. I like the act of driving. I don't like gridlock. I hate that, but I like the idea of getting out on a wide open road and just get hitting the gas and going out. I enjoy it. But yeah, give me the option of not having to do that while sitting in gridlock. Well, I don't know. That's all what we're talking about. And maybe if you're a politician listening to this, if you're a city councillor, or maybe you're a potential Toronto mayoral candidate listening, frame the argument that way. We're giving you choice, not taking anything away. and see how that responds to the people.
Absolutely.
And I'll send you my bill for political consultation afterwards.
Well, let's leave it there. Thanks again, Glenn, for joining us. I'm sure we'll speak again in the future about other and similar issues or related issues. And a reminder to everybody to make sure you tune into Spacing Radio. Well worth a listen, as is Spacing Magazine and everything to do with spacing. And thanks again. And we'll speak to you again next time.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.